My fiancée thought she could flirt with her ex right in front of me, so I waited for the right moment, stood up at our engagement party, and said, "Since you clearly have other plans, let's call this whole thing off." I'm a 42-year-old man from Charleston, South Carolina. I've spent most of my life here, working as a contractor. About 3 years ago, I met a woman named Sarah at a local community event. She was vibrant, intelligent, and had this infectious laugh that could light up a room. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love for classic rock and Southern cuisine. Sarah was 38, a school teacher with a passion for literature. Our relationship blossomed quickly. We moved in together after a year, and by the second year, I proposed. She said yes, and we began planning our engagement party, set to take place at a charming venue overlooking the Ashley River. Looking back, there were signs I chose to ignore. Sarah often mentioned her ex-boyfriend, Mark, in conversations. She claimed they were just friends, and that their relationship ended amicably. I trusted her, believing that honesty was the foundation of our relationship. However, as the engagement party approached, I noticed Sarah becoming increasingly secretive. She'd step outside to take calls, quickly hang up when I entered the room, and became defensive when I asked who she was talking to. I brushed it off, attributing it to pre-party stress. The day of the engagement party arrived, and everything seemed perfect. Friends and family gathered, the venue was beautifully decorated, and the atmosphere was filled with joy. I was mingling with guests when I noticed Sarah talking to a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, well-dressed, and had a familiarity with Sarah that made me uneasy. I approached them, and Sarah introduced him as Mark, her ex-boyfriend. She said he was in town and decided to stop by. I was taken aback but maintained my composure, welcoming him politely. Throughout the evening, I couldn't help but notice their interactions. They laughed at inside jokes, stood close to each other, and at one point, I saw Mark place his hand on Sarah's lower back. It felt inappropriate, especially considering the occasion. As the night progressed, I found myself alone on the balcony, trying to process what was happening. That's when I overheard a conversation between Sarah and Mark. They were reminiscing about their past, with Sarah giggling and saying, "Those were the days." Mark responded, "They don't have to be over." My heart sank. I realized that Sarah's feelings for Mark hadn't faded, and she was entertaining the idea of rekindling their relationship. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and heartbroken. I walked back into the party, gathered everyone's attention, and stood beside Sarah. With a calm but firm voice, I said, "Since you clearly have other plans, let's call this whole thing off." The room fell silent. Sarah looked shocked, trying to protest, but I continued, "I won't be part of a relationship where my fiancée flirts with her ex at our engagement party." I thanked everyone for coming, apologized for the abrupt end, and left the venue. As I stepped outside into the cool Charleston night, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was my cousin Mike, asking what the hell just happened. I ignored it. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear my own footsteps on the gravel driveway. I got in my truck, slammed the door, and sat there staring at the steering wheel. I could still see Sarah's face, confused, embarrassed, angry. She didn't chase me, though. That said everything. I drove home, alone. The ring box was still on the dresser. I didn't even want to look at it. I cracked open a beer, sat on the couch, and just stared at the TV. I wasn't watching. My mind was replaying everything. Sarah's laughter with Mark, the way she leaned into him, the look they gave each other when they thought no one was watching. At around 2 a.m., I heard a knock on the door. I didn't move. Then the knocking turned into banging. I finally opened it. It was Sarah, makeup smudged, red-eyed. She pushed past me like it was still her home. "You humiliated me," she hissed, voice trembling. I laughed, louder than I meant to. "You brought him to our engagement party, Sarah?" "He's my friend." I stepped closer. Friends don't say it doesn't have to be over in hushed voices on balconies while their ex-fiancé stands 20 feet away. She froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. That was the moment I knew she'd heard me. She just didn't know I had heard her. She broke down then. Said it was a mistake, that she didn't mean it like that Mark was just being dramatic, that she was caught up in nostalgia. I wasn't going to do anything, I swear. But I couldn't believe her. Not now. Something had cracked wide open between us. Trust doesn't just bounce back. She begged me to talk in the morning. I told her to sleep on the couch if she wasn't going to leave. I locked the bedroom door and lay there, staring at the ceiling until the sun came up. The next day, I went to work early. Just wanted space. When I got home, her stuff was gone. No note. No goodbye. Just gone. But that's not the twist. 2 days later, I got a message from my buddy Darren. He works over at the marina. Said he saw Sarah and Mark having lunch out by the pier. Said they didn't look like just friends. Said they kissed. I wanted to puke. And yet, I wasn't surprised. That night, I opened our shared laptop to look at some bills. She forgot to log out of her email. And that's when I found them. Emails. Dozens. Some recent, some from months ago. They'd been in touch the whole time. Long emails about their memories, regrets, flirty messages. One even said, "I think about you when I'm with him." That one hit like a punch to the gut. But it got worse. In one message, from a few weeks before the party, she told Mark she wasn't sure she wanted to marry me. She said she didn't feel sparks anymore, and that maybe they owed it to themselves to see what was still there between them. So she invited him to our engagement party. To test it. Like I was some kind of backup plan. Some placeholder while she figured out if her old flame still burned. I couldn't breathe reading those words. But here's where the twist really hits. I got a call the next day. From Sarah's mom. She asked me to come over. Said Sarah was in bad shape. I didn't want to go. I almost said no. But I went. Sarah was there. Her mom had made tea like it was some normal afternoon. I sat on the edge of the couch. Sarah didn't look at me at first. Just held her mug, quiet. Then she dropped the bomb. She was pregnant. And she didn't know whose it was. She said it could be mine. We were still sleeping together until a couple weeks ago. But she said there was one night, about a month before the party, when she saw Mark. She swore it was one time. Swore she didn't plan it. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or laugh. Her mom was in tears. I was just numb. I told Sarah I needed time. That was 3 days ago. I haven't answered her calls since. Haven't told anyone else yet. And now I'm sitting here on my porch with a bottle of whiskey, staring at the ring I was supposed to put on her finger, wondering what the hell I'm going to do next. The whiskey burned my throat, but it didn't clear the fog in my head. I sat there until the bottle was half empty, thinking through every second of the past few weeks. She cheated. She lied. And now there might be a kid in the middle of it. I didn't ask for this. I didn't sign up for this life. The next morning, I made up my mind to get some answers. If Sarah was going to claim she was pregnant and maybe the baby was mine, then we were doing things the right way. I texted her, doctor's appointment. I want proof. She answered back almost instantly with the time and place. She was already in the waiting room when I got there. Hair pulled back, oversized hoodie, looking tired. We didn't talk. Just exchanged a glance and waited for her name to be called. The appointment was awkward, quiet. The doctor did the scan, confirmed she was about 7 weeks along. Timing-wise, it could have been me, or it could have been Mark. I didn't say much. Just nodded and kept my jaw clenched tight. After the appointment, we walked out to the parking lot, and she asked if I wanted to grab lunch. I said no. I don't want anything from you, not right now, I told her. We'll talk after the paternity test. Then came another twist. That night, I got another text. Not from Sarah. From Mark. Yeah, Mark. It was short. Just said, I think we need to talk. You don't know everything. I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was to block him. But something made me reply. Then talk. He asked me to meet him at a diner in Mount Pleasant. I figured, screw it. What's one more crazy thing in this mess? When I got there, he was already at a corner booth, drinking coffee. He looked nervous. Shaky. Like a man who hadn't slept in days. He started talking before I even sat down. Look, I didn't come to that party to mess things up, he said. She invited me. Said she missed me, and that she wasn't sure she wanted to go through with the wedding. I didn't know she hadn't told you any of that. I kept my mouth shut, let him keep going. She told me things were bad between you two. That you were controlling. That you pressured her to move in. That you pushed for the engagement. My jaw clenched. That's not true, I said. We talked about all that. I never pushed her. He nodded quickly. I believe you. Now I do. But back then, I thought maybe she was confused. She kept giving me mixed signals. Then he pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. Read this. It was a text from 2 days before the engagement party. Sarah, I don't want to choose. I want both. You understand me in ways he never will. I felt sick. My stomach dropped. He kept talking. After the party, she told me she was going to break things off with you quietly. She said you humiliated her, that you were unstable. I humiliated her, I said, trying not to raise my voice. Mark nodded. That's when I backed off. I told her I didn't want to be involved anymore. I could tell she was playing both of us. Then he looked me dead in the eye, and I used protection. That night, she was drunk and emotional, but I made sure. I don't think the baby is mine. That changed everything. If he was telling the truth, then there was a high chance the baby was actually mine. That made things worse in a way I didn't expect. Now I had to ask myself, did I want to raise a child with a woman who emotionally cheated, lied to both of us, and tried to spin the story like I was the bad guy? When I got home that night, there was a letter in my mailbox. Handwritten. From Sarah. It said she was leaving town for a while. Needed space. Said she was going to stay with her sister in Atlanta. Said she'd get the paternity test done there and would keep me updated. No apology. Just that she was processing everything. And then one more sentence at the end that knocked the wind out of me. I'm not even sure I want to keep the baby. That was 5 days ago. I haven't heard a word since. And now I'm left here with a torn-up future, a maybe kid, a whole lot of unanswered questions, and a growing feeling that Sarah's lies go deeper than even I realize. 2 weeks passed. No word from Sarah. No test results. Nothing. I try not to think about it, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't checking my phone every few hours. Every time I saw a text that wasn't from her, my chest sank a little deeper. Then last Friday, I was at my niece's birthday party. Whole family was there, cousins, aunts, my mom. I tried to pretend I was okay, laughed where I could, stayed away from the booze. But around 7 p.m., my cousin Mike walked over, holding his phone out like it was about to explode. Bro, check this, he said, eyes wide. It was a Facebook post. From Sarah's sister. Tagged her. So happy my little sis finally decided to let go of her past and start clean. Baby coming soon. Atlanta's been good for her. There was a photo. Sarah, visibly pregnant now. Smiling. Holding hands with someone. It wasn't me. It wasn't Mark either. It was some guy I'd never seen before. I didn't even finish my niece's cake. I got in my truck and drove straight home, shaking, furious. I didn't know whether to cry or start throwing things. She'd been playing games with all of us. And now, she had another guy in the picture? I stared at that post all night, zoomed in, studied the guy's face. Then I went back through her old photos. One of them was tagged. That dude. He was her ex before Mark. College boyfriend. I'd heard his name once, in passing. Travis. I hadn't even known they reconnected. The next morning, I called her sister. Straight up asked where Sarah was staying. She hesitated, but maybe she could hear the pain in my voice, because she gave me the address. So I drove 4.5 hours to Atlanta. I got there around noon. Stood outside the apartment complex for a long time. Then I texted her. Me. We need to talk. I'm outside. It took 20 minutes, but eventually the door opened. She looked different. Tired. Heavier. Older somehow. The kind of aging that comes with stress and guilt. She stepped out alone. No smile. You didn't have to come, she said. No, I said. I didn't. But I need to hear it. All of it. No more lies. Just tell me the truth. Please. She looked away. Then sat down on the concrete steps. I sat beside her, a full foot of space between us. I lied, she said. To you. To Mark. To myself. I stayed quiet. I thought I could have both. I thought I was still in love with Mark. But when I saw him again, it wasn't the same. It was just nostalgia. But I didn't stop talking to him, because it felt safe. I asked, what about me? Was I just a placeholder? She shook her head. You were real. You were the one I probably should have married. But I wasn't ready to be grounded. I didn't know what I wanted. And Travis? I asked. She sighed. He reached out after the party. Saw the photos. Said he missed me. We met. I was confused, okay? And yeah, I slept with him. Just once. I swear. But that's all it took, I guess. I laughed bitterly. So you're saying it's not mine? Not Mark's. It's his. She nodded slowly. I got the test done. It's Travis's. There it was. The final truth. I leaned back, staring at the sky. It felt like someone had dropped a cinder block on my chest. I had wasted 3 years of my life building a future with a woman who didn't know how to let go of her past or stay present in her own life. I stood up. Why didn't you just say all this sooner? She looked up at me. Because I was ashamed. And scared you'd hate me. And I think part of me wanted to keep the door open. Just in case. I nodded. You closed it yourself. She didn't argue. I turned to leave, but then I stopped. Looked at her one last time. I hope you figure yourself out, Sarah. I really do. But I'm done waiting. She didn't say anything. I drove back to Charleston in silence. That night, I told my mom everything. She cried. Said she never fully trusted Sarah but didn't want to interfere. Mike offered to take me out, said I needed a rebound. I declined. I wasn't ready. Mark texted me a few days later. I told him the baby wasn't his. He sent back, glad we both dodged that bullet. I laughed for the first time in weeks. It's been 3 months since that trip to Atlanta. I haven't heard from Sarah. Haven't checked her socials either. I unfollowed everything. Cleared the photos. Sold the ring. I started going on hikes again. Picked up guitar lessons from a guy I met at a hardware store. Work's been steady. Life's been quiet. And I've realized something. I didn't lose the love of my life. I lost someone who didn't know how to love the right way. The truth is, I didn't need to be chosen last. Or second. Or shared. I needed to be chosen first. I'm not sure what comes next. Maybe someday I'll try again. Maybe I won't. But I know one thing for sure. I will never ignore the signs again. She thought she could keep me in her back pocket, just in case. But I walked away. And I'm not looking back.